El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv Andrew J. Polk. And it's very important to know all of the places that you're able to tune in, chime in, particularly the chime in part of it is already have Manda Moncada with the announcement, as very accurate as it is, Free for All Friday. And that is absolutely an incredibly important thing for us on this week, because one of our most important days of the week, one of the most important times that we host and have a part of it here. So we also have Marky Mendango. Good afternoon to you as well, because taking on, as much as we have a lot of big subjects, things certainly here in El Paso, and I feel like people have been circling around it. Yeah, there is the occasion on which national events do override any of our local discussion and consideration. But for the most part, and for as much as we'll try anyway, talking about the things that affect us here and happen here in the borderland is our primary focus. But on Fridays, we open up the floodgates, as it were, and often all the response does end up flooding in as we are taking on all your comments, calls, concerns, all the ways y'all can communicate with us, as much as we can cram in to 2 hours on the program, which is never quite enough, but we'll do our level best to deal with it and get in what we can, as we do every Friday. So that means that we do have the phone lines open already, as we do over those on social media. You can see the phone number already up on screen, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM is the number to call. And with all of the phone lines, already some of those populating on there, and we'll be getting to those calls, certainly. And we do have, I don't know the right way to put it, not exactly a blast from the past, but trying to figure some things out to get a different way of getting at us as well. So we might finally actually be able to start mentioning the pound 250 line here. And, well, one of the questions y'all been asking about not exactly a feature of the show, because I barely get paid for this, and if anyone else is, without me knowing about it, I'll be mad on my own. But they do have some other calls and other ways of communicating coming in that we might finally be able to start using again, and we'll kind of demonstrate that today. Talking about the pound 250 line, in which some of the long-lost callers, let's put it that way, have been making their way on, and a lot of other people chiming in, including a Monaco Cervantes, wishing a TGIF, everyone. Yep, Tells definitely go in first. No, you mean, thank goodness it's Friday, absolutely. And also Austin Redfern, hello to all Talk El Paso fans, contributors, and Trump bashers. We do seem to get, maybe not exactly equal measure, because, okay, the supposition I have is that the vast majority of people are content to sit back, relax, in air quotes with relax, but sit back and just go along with the flow, listen to the show as it's going by. And there's nothing wrong with it. But for those that want to chime in, and those that want to wade into the sometimes melee of comments and Thunderdome, as we put it here, like also Robbie Flores with the happy Free for All Friday, well, that was your opportunity to do so. Particularly invitation to those that have never called in before. If you want to, now is your time. Lines are available, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So we got a few things going on right now. Just one update I do want to give is that, as much as we are expecting there to be more on the whole gas and spending card situation, there has been an update as of today. A news article from our partners at KFOX 14 published right before we got on air here. El Paso Ethics Commission to review gas card misuse complaint against Representative Cassandra Hernandez, so that they would be hearing the complaint on July 19th. And there would be another hearing that another hearing would take place on then July 20th. So that one being filed by previous guest in the show, George Zavala. But we are again planning to hear from Representative Cassandra Hernandez herself next week on the program. Also, one other thing that I kind of called, but maybe not in the way I totally expected, that the woman accused of shooting the Uber driver, who has now been charged with murder, has had her hearing postponed. There was one anticipated today, a bond hearing, but according further, again, to our news partners at KFOX 14, that hearing has been delayed because, according to the documents that they have, is that there was a lack of response from attorneys on it. So there's been not necessarily any other date been set for that. So a couple of things we've been talking about in our local area that definitely been going on, but there's a whole lot more going on around the country, across the globe, of course, and keeping our eye on some of those things as well. But this is the time to bring any and all of that up, as we also have Edgar Ortiz on board with us. So let's just dive straight into those phone lines. Again, that number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
Yes, this I'm sure it's been brought up several times during the week, but this sweetheart deal that Hunter Biden received is really outlandish.
I mean, some of the details, I mean, there's been talked about a lot more than I am going to be able to fit in here right now. But I mean, there's whistleblowers involved and felony charges being reduced down to misdemeanors. And in some cases, it being essentially, community service. Not entirely all aspects of it, but I do believe that the version that's been most talked about, it does avoid jail time, I do believe.
Well, I'm sure the prosecutor, that was involved in it, and at the top of the news hour, Merrick Garland said that the prosecutor, a Trump appointee, had had discretion. Well, I'm sure he had discretion, but someone sure had their thumb on the scale, I'm sure.
I mean, anyone who's ever seen any high-powered political drama, either in TV or like movie format, and I don't think sure, those are all fiction, but the idea of it being, oh, nope, that's just totally independent and nothing going on with it, to think that there wasn't some and you better not expletive up this whole situation, there's back ways of that being mentioned or put forth. So even if someone has total autonomy, come on, this was an incredibly high-powered thing, and I don't know if that totally smacks true to me at the very least.
Well, and this is a president that's really, really, he says, hard on. He wants to get tough on gun crimes and this, that, and the other. But I guarantee you, anybody down here in Texas, if you were some Hispanic or some African American or the average Joe Blow, I guarantee you they would hit you with the full 10 years. You probably get 3 to 4 years incarceration, and the rest a supervised release. They're not gonna have a kind spot for you. That's for sure. If you fit into those categories.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a question of power and influence. And as much as some are also out there saying here, well, I'm more interested in those that are part of the administration, part of the issues they have. I mean, a lot of the comparisons happening between other children of presidents and their involvement in previous times here. And let me just say, none of those situations that are being discussed in these same realms are particularly good. The idea of, billion-dollar sweetheart deals, or this kind of situation where, felony gun possession charges that have been expected, at least as of earlier this week, to be reduced down to probably being dismissed if certain conditions are met. I mean, I have no doubt that if someone were less connected, they could have more of the book ending up being thrown at them. And I will also say the idea of it being I'm not as concerned about the Hunter as I am about the president and his activities. I mean, there's also something to be said about being in someone's actual immediate family. It just hits different. So, I mean, all of these things deserve to be investigated and deserve to see what needs to be done on them done correctly, though. I don't know if there's an avenue to investigate a prosecutor for improper charging, anything like that. I don't know. That's getting into congressional hearings and testimony realm. So I don't have a good answer for what could happen next.
Well, I'm sure Biden is proud of his crackhead son. But then again, who am I? Andrew, have a good weekend, and thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, with that, I think we got to figure out some of the technical things we got going on here. We're going to go ahead and take that break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls, more comments, a lot of other things coming up. It is Free for All Friday. I'll mention that one that RJ has brought up here, along with a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier crash I-10 eastbound at the Zaragoza exit has cleared. All lanes are back open. There's still some heavy traffic. I-10 westbound at Mesa, a disabled vehicle is off on the right shoulder. It's causing delays all the way up to Trans Mountain, 10-minute delays from Mesa to Vinton. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Mesa. Due to road construction, that's a 5-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 year-to-date in new car sales. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering huge savings on all new and certified pre-owned vehicles. More for your trade with no payments for 90 days.
Thank you, boss man. This week at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Get $10,000 off MSRP on remaining 2022 Grand Wagoneer SUVs. Get $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks. Get $1,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Wrangler Sport and Sahara. Plus super low 2.8% APR for 72 months on 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie and Lone Star trucks. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our aggressive lenders will push to improve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and I-10 at Sunland Park Drive, or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate dealer discount plus GTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.50 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Car crimes are on the rise. Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. When you park your car, always lock it down. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Never leave your windows down. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight, or you might return to a terrible sight. Try to park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-334-2266. That's 800-334-2266. 800-334-2266.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of commentary coming in there, including RJ Promote saying, it's so wonderful for those families of Titan to be left in the dark by the Biden administration not telling them about the Navy knowing the implosion happened an hour after the submersible went in, referring there to the Ocean Gate Titan submarine that was going down to the Titanic. And again, not exactly saying that it's a good thing by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly thoughts go out to the families of those left behind. But there are just so many questions about the primary one being why would you get in $250,000 each seat to get into I've seen a lot on the not the NDA, but the release of liability that has to be signed. So I'm sure there are going to be some pending lawsuits, and the first one issues they're going to have to go through is to bulldoze through that. None of this has been certified in any way. This is me paraphrasing, but effectively what it said. None of this has been certified in any way by any authority, and all is at your own risk. The controller. I know a lot of people have been focusing on the controller, of it the $30 off-brand video game controller, but oh boy. But yeah, the information that the Navy had detected the implosion using top secret I guess I'm not surprised they ended up sitting on that for a minute, because usually saying, oh, hey, this top secret system that you're not supposed to know about totally found something in the way that we're not supposed to be able to tell you. Anyway, I guess I'm not too surprised about that. But a different comment also coming in. Louis Pinato with something a bit before my time, so I had to look this up real quick. Former Mayor Wardy tried to smuggle a gun on a plane and several question marks, nada. So we had to go and search that one. I was not able to find actually the original articles themselves, but according to Joe Wardy's Wikipedia article, yes, it's Wikipedia, but they cite the sources on here, a couple of ones from back in 2005. Or back in the day, don't have the exact date of 2007 was when it happened. Wardy, one of 4 at airport with firearms since 2005, and decision pending on Joe Wardy's airport security breach. So that one claims that, Wardy was stopped after having a loaded handgun detected in his carry-on luggage Wednesday, March 7, 2007. So a bit before my time in the reporting sphere. So interesting one to bring up there. But other things being brought up here, including implications of justice. Flaco Jimenez also chiming in, and Richard DeMille trying on a line for size. See how this works out for you. Happy Polk yaks too much Friday. I think Free For All Friday flows a little bit better off the tongue here. But again, if you're unclear on this concept of a talk radio show that I'm the host of, again, at an extended amount of time on that particular point here, in case we just still remedial classes on you understanding that concept. I understand everyone learns at different speeds. Anyway, other comments coming in, including John Broughton saying, in the Navy, when contact is lost with a submarine, bad things have happened. You have to read between the lines. And also RJ saying the submersible was made environmentally friendly out of compounds instead of steel. Nice job. There's so much that's been put out there about that whole situation, including that they use carbon fiber, which sounds like a great and fancy new material kind of thing, except one of the points made that I find interesting is that it makes it so that you can't see any of the micro stress fractures going on to it because of the way carbon fiber is. Well, it looks, it's not one solid sheet, so to speak. So just no, you won't catch me doing, not even if I had the money to do that kind of a thing, won't be catching me doing that anytime soon. Just the form factor of it's heebie-jeebies. But also Bernadette Bandicool chiming in. Good Free For All Friday to you as well. Let's go back to those phone lines now. Of course, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. That is, of course, the number to call. And we do have lines available now, so give it a shot. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast in line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Woke Raul here. So the race for the presidency is on. So, Donald Trump is going to get a lot of attention. He is running for the presidency.
Certainly.
He is, being indicted by several courts, adding up to about 70 indictments and, 100 years of time in jail. Anyway, even there's about 10 people running for the Republican presidential nomination. That's a lot of folks, And most recently, former Texas Congressman Will Hurd, I remember him doing that thing with Beto where they went in a car for around the district. Yeah, it was interesting. He seems like an interesting guy, a level-headed guy. He was a former CIA agent. He used to work for the agency that Trump has gone after their leaders. He says they were after him. Will Hurd says he won't sign the Republican National Committee's pledge to back the party's ultimate nominee in order to participate in the primary debate. So good for him. He seems to have some there. And the interesting thing about that is that Trump has already said that he won't debate his Republican presidential candidates. Now, Andrew, you'd have to agree with me that is cowardly and shortchanges the American people. So anyway, I've been thinking about the presidential elections. It is a huge deal, The commander-in-chief of our military, the world's best funded military, and the president is the CEO of the world's biggest economy. And America, the United States is home to some amazing Americans. And I've had the privilege of meeting some of them here locally and nationally. My company was founded by a former high school football coach, and he built a financial services company and became a billionaire. And his associates and investors made a lot of money by educating people about how money works. And yet, Americans have to choose between two candidates of the two political parties in control of the government and the process of how we elect our leaders. It's what some people call the duopoly. And sadly, enough of the politicians in government are in the pockets of the plutocrats, and being the best politicians plutocrats can buy. And that's all because Republican Supreme Court justices have ruled that money is free speech and that corporations are people. And here's the thing, the presidents nominate the Supreme Court justices, so that's a big deal. Their decisions affect El Pasoans, just like those of presidents, And now we're learning how right-wing plutocrats with business in front of the Supreme Court corrupted Republican Supreme Court Justices Uncle Thomas and Samuel Alito with multi-million-dollar free, unreported vacations to remote and exotic places in private jets, to cruise in private yachts and party with Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society. Now, this Leonard Leo got $1.6 billion from a manufacturing magnate some time ago, and it is believed to be the largest political donation ever. And what this guy does, this Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society, they pick judge nominations for the Republicans. That's how we got those people up there, that latest three on the Supreme Court. The Trump picks, the radicals. Now, so obviously, I'm thinking about presidential elections and the characteristics of the persons Americans deserve for president. Now, I think the American people deserve a moral and ethical person for president. And I acknowledge the fact that the Constitution does not require that. Hell, a convicted penal murderer could become president, Is it that special? Satan could be the president of the United States. Someone as demonic, loathsome, and loony as Trump could theoretically become president again. So do you want and think that the American people deserve a moral person for president, Andrew?
I'm not sure a moral or ethical person for president has ever actually run, but that's a separate issue there if you want to get very technical on it. I mean, there's a whole thing about those who seek power, and as you very much just elaborated on, being the highest office in the land, one with arguably the most power in it, and has definitely had a lot more centralization on it here. I'm not sure any real, truly definably sane person would be like, yeah, I want to be in Trump. I want to be in charge of that. Sorry, I was reading a comment there, but listen, anyone who, it's kind of I wouldn't want anyone who wants the position to have it in any case. I'm not sure that there's a better system out there. Like the idea of having it being done by random draw also is interesting, if also terrifying, depending on who ends up being in the random draw. So it is what we've got. And as much as it comes down to the two parties, I mean, it's a factor. Duverger's law, the idea that the first past the post election systems will tend to engender there being two parties, because you'll either have, regardless of what the names are called, you'll have the party in power and the party out of power. And the party in power will tend to consolidate power, try to basically capitalize on their gains and keep that power, whereas the party out of power will try to do everything they can to become, the party in power, and usually doing so by becoming as expansive as possible. That's why, in general, what you look at for incumbents is stay the course, whereas it's all come together behind my leadership, and what the other party does is like, hey, let's get these bums out, which ends up being a lot more expansive of a look. So what the real upshot is that you tend to find that if it's successful enough third party positions, because there are 30 parties, Libertarian, Greenies, there's at least one other major one out there that I'm aware of, 5 other major ones, but those are the ones that come to mind at the moment. Anyway, other ones I've seen on the ballot in our region anyway, because it actually has happened. And if they get successful enough, there is a 5% of the vote total margin that has been being pushed for. I think that the Libertarians did that with who was it? Joe Jorgensen, I want to say, in one of the last major ones. So trying to reach that threshold, because it would allow them more accessibility and things into maybe not debates, but funding, federal recognition on ballots, stuff like that. And they haven't reached that yet. But even if they did, if anything of their platform would become popular enough, the real impetus would be then on the parties, either of them, particularly the party in power will stay their own course, but the party out of power would be like, okay, if it's not totally abhorrent to their base and their platform, try to basically absorb as much of that as possible in order to expand their base and therefore get back into power. So as much as I'm not totally crazy about this two-party system until other things end up changing around with it, it's it's kind of the law of gravitational attraction. It's going to happen more often than not. unless there are other intervening factors. And when it comes to the debates, I mean, I'm well on record saying that I appreciate debates. It's not really the best way to actually have, what's the right way to put it, a policy fully elaborated on, but there is something about having someone powerfully and vociferously defend their points, put it forth and say, yes, I will stand on this ground that is persuasive. And, well, I just love to see it. It's one of the reasons that I make sure we air the debates, speak as much as possible as we can. So him saying that he is not going to end up debating, referring to the former president and, again, current candidate, and, yes, front runner of the Republican Party currently, despite the, I think we had, was it James Ratcliffe talking about there being 13 in the field now, depending on how you end up counting it, whether some of the other ones. And let's just say that there is a bit of delineation that needs to happen there. I occasionally, particularly around election time, and as we're in the lead up to it, start getting random messages from people saying, hey, I'm running for president, you should totally interview me. And the first question is often in those cases, so who the hell are you? And they often like wrote a book or have some product or service to sell along with it. So just because someone says they're running for president and or the seriousness behind it doesn't mean that you actually have to say like, oh no, yeah, totally, you have a chance. Because let's be honest, in a crowded field of 10 to 30, let's call it around a dozen, just for brevity's sake, there's going to be a lot of people that don't end up getting it, of course. And so there's going to be a lot of, okay, who would pick your pony? Who do you want to go for? Who do you think is going to be the winner in this race, regardless of ideals? That ends up being a part of the thought within it. The way it maybe should be, probably not. And at this point, during this whole crowded pack race we're dealing with right now, a little bit more ideology could lead it, probably, but eventually pragmatism ends up coming down, particularly when you at the very least go towards then the general, because if you're not thinking about can this person, electability will eventually creep into the conversation, I have no doubt, and that's one of the things that I think will be interesting enough to come up. Frankly, when it comes to the whole Republican primary, the major will be the challenge itself to the former president, Donald Trump, because there are so many politicians in this country in all levels that basically rode his coattails for a while, saying, yeah, I'm on board with it, whether they truly were or not. Again, how do you know a politician is lying? Their mouth is moving, et cetera, et cetera. And so for them to say, I'm going to be the better choice than him, it means eventually they're going to have to go against him in some way to say, no, you're wrong and I'm right. And that has proven a level of political kryptonite for those that have been like truly courting the MAGA crowd on this whole situation at any level, really. And so Hurd, as much as, and you did bring up an interesting point of it, his road trip that he did, back in 2017, what it was like a winter storm or something going on at that point in time. And so they road tripped back to DC together and live streamed a bunch of it. Was definitely an interesting political experiment, referring to Hurd with O'Rourke, as they were at that point in time out of right next to each other districts, butted right up next to each other, the 16th and the 23rd, O'Rourke and Hurd respectively. Whether or not that could happen in this time frame and this political climate is as much as that was just over 6 years ago is another question that I'm not going to try to answer right here. But what I will say is that he may be better positioned in order to start doing that kind of, well, frankly, attack on the former president. And that's what it's going to take. But also, I see it going this way. This is totally cloudy crystal ball time, but I see it going this way, that someone's got to break the ice. Someone's got to be willing to take that first step within this field. Otherwise, I mean, there's a bit of inertia there now, isn't it? It does seem like, given the polling standards and the popularity in its own right of the former president, that still is defying conventional analysis of it, of the way politics works. I'm going to be talking about Dukakis forever at this point, because the fact that this guy had one goofy ride that then got capitalized by his political opponent and completely just torpedoed down below the Titanic in that new sub wreckage down in the Marianas Trench. Too soon? I don't think so. In any case, point is that level of political operation is not going to work here. So it's going to take someone to break the ice, someone truly willing to say it. No, I think you, Mr. Former President, are wrong, and that I will be a better choice, and here's why. And not just kind of tiptoeing, walking on eggshells around it, which is very much what it feels like at this point. I mean, literally, I forget which candidate it was, but the one outside any of those impeachment, or not impeachment, any of those indictment hearings or those proceedings that have been going on, saying, if I elected, I will pardon the former president. It's like, but okay, the former president is still running himself. So why was that make you a better choice? So That's the kind of existential crisis that's going into this crowded field. The fact that it is a crowded field is fascinating to me. Don't get me wrong. And something we'll be, of course, watching closely as we do with all of this. And the fact that we've got another regional congressperson willing to do this within the last, again, decade or so is just, that's weird, right? That feels weird and makes me wonder what's in the water around here sometimes. So I appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth, but we'll go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get more calls on the line there. Lines open now, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso police say 2 teenagers were killed after running a red light, causing a crash in northeast El Paso. The crash happened Wednesday afternoon at the intersection of Gateway North and McCombs. Investigators say that 19-year-old Daniel Thurman was driving on Gateway North with an 18-year-old passenger when he ran a red light and T-boned another car. The driver and an 8-year-old passenger in the other car were injured. Thurman and his female passenger were taken to a local hospital where they later died. A Fort Bliss soldier has been sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for sexually abusing a 6-year-old on post. 28-year-old Trevor Liu of Dallas went before a federal judge on Tuesday. Liu will serve his federal penalty once he reaches the end of his current 20-year sentence on state charges. According to court documents, Liu sexually abused a minor while serving at Fort Bliss between 2014 and 2015. For more news headlines, head to our website, cbs4local.com. I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A lot of stop and go traffic. I-10 westbound from Mesa up to Vinton. It's a 7-minute delay. I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Mesa. Road construction slowing traffic. 5-minute delays there. Heavy congestion in the Spaghetti Bowl. I-10 westbound. The ramps to 110 and the port of entry are blocked due to heavy traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warned through Thursday of next week for extreme heat. We're looking at a high temperature of 108 degrees on Saturday, 109 on Sunday, possibly 110 by Monday. Heat advisory through Sunday night, excessive heat warning late Sunday night through Tuesday night. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
Hey, Sean Hannity here for my friends at Lone Star Transfer. If you felt like booking your timeshare was difficult in the past, you know it's recently been almost impossible. Now, most clients are shocked to learn that their timeshare is now available to the public, and that severely limits booking options. Many owners have also reached out, and they're upset that their yearly dues have nearly doubled during the maintenance fee season. Now, for well over a decade, our friends at Lone Star Transfer, a family-owned company, they have had the pleasure of helping thousands and thousands of people legally and permanently get out of their never-ending timeshare fees. Now, Lone Star Transfer guarantees the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call my good friends for a free, no-obligation consultation. Write this down. Call today, 833-594-0075. 833-594-0075. They're online at LoneStarTransfer.com.
Hunter Biden pleads guilty, and it's a deal that every American should be angry about. It protects Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. I give you all the details on the Ben Ferguson podcast, so download it right now wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson podcast.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one where most of the comments come in, and the Thunderdome comments often ends up developing. So forewarned, forearmed if you're waiting in over there. But also, of course, phone lines open, available right now. In fact, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And, of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. They do buy cars, so find them there or order what you're looking for. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, 950 Crockett Street, right across I-10 from Sunland Park Mall. And a lot of people tuning in and chiming in over on the social media, dropping those likes and reacts that we certainly do appreciate, including, get the full list up here, come on, cooperate this time, Richard Janicek, Amber Banda, Edgar Ortiz, James Holmes, Flaco Jimenez, Mark Mandingo, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Jim McCravey. Do appreciate all of that. And, okay, on the whole debate thing, I mean, I will agree in part to what was said previously, that I don't like it when people aren't willing to debate. But, of course, that's a phenomenon we see even here locally, unfortunately, because frankly, for front runners in preliminary parts of it, or even the later parts, let's be honest, there's a little bit of like, okay, you have to. Like, if there's someone saying that, hey, I'm not going to debate my opponent actually on the like final presidential ballot, oh yeah, that would be a lot of people being very unhappy about that, and could maybe, possibly, I'm fortune telling here, see an appreciable drop in their polling numbers if doing so, unless they really sell it. But otherwise, honestly, again, we see it because they're not saying this out loud, but this is my reasoning, backdoor reasoning for it, that why would a front runner bother to give someone else to take a shot at him, basically, rhetorically speaking, not physically violent speaking, because if they got out front and they got enough of a lead that they don't think they're going to make up ground with anyone, why would they give anyone else a chance to chip away at theirs? So it's an unfortunate thing that we see at a whole lot of levels, including here locally. So not in favor of it in any way, but it does seem to be part of the, I don't know, modern conventional wisdom when it comes to politics. Still mad about it, but in any case, let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Jerry on the west side with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for taking my phone call.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to put out there that I'm a Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see him run again and get it.
Okay.
And then do a vengeance tour. So all those fine, outstanding folk that have basically blown everything as far as open borders and crime and stores. Just, go ahead and run it right without interference, because a lot of people did tell us that the Democrats were going to be there, and this is especially for your friend in the Northeast. That guy's a gift. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I wanted to put out there. I would vote for Trump again, and if he doesn't get it, I hope the next one would be the governor of Florida. That man's great.
He definitely has
All
been.
right,
Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
all right. Bye.
I will say that, DeSantis you're talking about there, I do believe is, one of the next ones. There have been a number of straw polls over the last couple of years, honestly, that have put him, there was a smattering of talking, I feel like, probably just prior or like in the immediate progression of 2020 about it potentially being, Governor Greg Abbott, but that has fallen way off. There was a little bit of rivalry and a little bit of nose thumbing, I kind of felt like, politically speaking, from DeSantis. And also of him, there have been a few within Texas of gatherings of Republican perspectives, hopefuls, etc., that DeSantis was specifically either not invited or didn't participate in, but then held like his own tours and kind of things. And he's very much gearing up for that mode. Tweet I saw a little bit earlier, putting out a point that he's going to be doing another visit. DeSantis is to Eagle Pass specifically, and that one of the points that he will be making is that he has therefore visited the border more than members of the sitting administration when it comes to the president or vice president. Definitely political points trying to be brought up there. And I do think, yes, DeSantis has been put up in, again, those straw polls at CPAC and other places over recent-ish years as being the next most likely, though we will see. And again, it's still got that huge, ginormous boulder in the road of how are you going to go against the sitting president? If Trump doesn't basically decide, I'll bow out, I'll take a kingmaker role, of which I think a lot of people want him to, as much as there are people wanting things out of the situation, and doesn't seem inclined to do that because, let's be honest, anyone who has ever even heard of or any of the persona of the former president knows that ego is a big part of it. There's no one that has ever appeared on a reality TV show, and I'm willing to, I don't know how you quantify that, but I'm willing to bet money on it, that does not have some serious ego. Let's just be perfectly honest with it here. So it's built in for him. So I don't expect him to do any kind of graceful bow out or anything besides see it through to the bitter end. Anyone want to disagree with me on that? I'd love to hear your reasoning on that particular point. But to the idea of the former president, and particularly his popularity, the aspect of it that, again, still defies conventional analysis. It's starting to come around. Otherwise, I don't think anyone would have been willing to throw their hat into the ring against him because, yep, he is running. He has announced that much. And how much this will interplay with any of the other legal situations go on is another one that we'll keep watching, of course. But the thing is that as much as, okay, even before the presidency, even before 2016 and the lead up to it, the times that the former president came into the public consciousness ever basically since The Apprentice, I was often seen from mainstream views as a kind of, this is just, this rando popping up, so to speak. Not anyone quoting anyone's phrases here, but just my perception of the way that it was being portrayed. But the thing is that when you see a whale breach the surface, it's still running under that whole time. Submarine, if you prefer that type of an analogy. But I think that, again, the misunderstanding of his support, his base, that is both combined, particularly at this point, with some of the standard and traditional Republican bases, but also a creature entirely of its own. And that understanding or lack thereof of it, I think, is going to continue to confound a whole lot of things wrapped up in this and in this whole political situation. One of the reasons that, again, the types of stuff of, oh, well, this guy is a bad dude or stuff like that, it continues to not work. And one of the reasons that, as much as we have Free for All Friday, people are making their comments and such, and certainly can do so, that if you're trying to like browbeat anyone about particularly, but really any candidate, but particularly the former president, and wondering why it's not working, is because it's a misunderstanding of where that support even comes from. So I think this will be another interesting one. We'll see how this field gets winnowed down. I think that's the analysis that's been coming out about how a crowded field just basically guarantees the victory of the former president for the actual nomination. That is, it smacks pretty true to me. So until events prove otherwise, I'll just say that. So appreciate the point in the call. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now, get back on track and come back and get more of those calls on the line. So coming out after this, more calls, more comments, more of a lot of things going on, including some being sent to me. So if you want to chime in all of those ways, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And again, that phone number full up at the moment, but particularly as we end one call, another one opens, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Ruli's International Kitchen, a great little gourmet dive, is a great place to go for your everyday celebrations or particularly those special events. You want to find them online, rulisik.com. That's RULISIK.com, or just not too far from our studios here, 4176 North Mesa Street, because they have got your everyday favorites, locally inspired, international flavors and creations. but also new features just about every day. I often live by that special board that they have right by the front, their local focus and on creating and brilliant combining international cuisine right here at home. You definitely have to check that out. And it's one of the reasons that they catered my wedding. We've been going there before then, and of course ever since. So find them online again, ruleysik.com, or give them a call to make your reservation, 915-313-4806. That's 915-313-4806.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway East at Viscount, there's an accident blocking the left lane, stay to the right. I-10 westbound slow, 5-minute delays, stop and go traffic from Mesa to Vinton. I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Mesa is a 7-minute delay, and heavy congestion blocking the ramps to the 110 and the port of entry. I-10 westbound in the Spaghetti Bowl. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
Are you suffering from seasonal allergies? Because you're not alone. Experts say pollen season started earlier this year and will last longer, and that folks who've never had issues before are feeling miserable. I'm Martin Hoke, inventor of Navage, the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Over 3 million people use Navage to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs. Navage helps clear your sinuses quickly and naturally. But what about other people's experiences, like Miss Clement? Quote, I chose Navage because of my persistent allergies. Navage works. While using it, I cut back on allergy meds and occasional shots at my doctor's office. Unquote. That's one of over 120,000 reviews with a 4.6-star average written by people who use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. Stop suffering and try Navage today at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
A catalytic converter is an important component of your car's exhaust system. It's a total catastrophe if your catalytic converter is stolen. Park in well-lit areas. Install a protective device or etch on your VIN number. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority.
I've had this receding hairline, and I've tried a lot of these other products, and nothing really seemed to work. And I was introduced to Harum, and, after 3-4 months, I started seeing some new hair growth, especially where, in that receding hairline area. And my receding hairline is now no longer receding. My wife, she loves it. She says I look younger, and I'm telling all my friends about it. Product works great. It's making my hair a little bit darker. There's no chemicals in this. It's all natural, and I love it.
Made for men and women, Harum repairs and nourishes the scalp, which is the foundation for healthier hair. This in turn activates dormant hair follicles, which results in new hair growth. Harum treats receding hairlines, the crown of the head, and thinning hair. For a natural solution to regrow thicker, healthier hair, go to greatlifenow.com. Use code XM15 to get 15% off plus free shipping. Go to greatlifenow.com. greatlifenow.com.
I'm Ben Ferguson. And I'm Ted Cruz. This week's podcast answers your questions about the Trump indictment. What's in the indictment? How is it different from Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton? Will there be a trial? What's next?
Download Verdict with Ted Cruz now.
Rosetta Stone, where language is learned. rosettastone.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or an Andrew J. Polk, including a lot of different commentary, including Rick Reyes saying, need to hire those workers from Philadelphia that took 12 days to repair I-95 to work here on El Paso streets. I do not disagree with you, even though that was its own messed up situation. We didn't see that. It had a fire under it, so it collapsed, and there basically was no other option, though. Okay, other places I've lived, there's a construction season, right? Because if you're doing stuff in the dead of winter, something probably went wrong, / some things involving asphalt just don't work right. And so they have okay, we got to get it done during this time, right? And around here, since you can do it pretty much year round, it seems like there's a lack of urgency sometimes. So yeah, and Lupinato saying, yeah, amazed at the speed. Truck driver, and I see this project last month, and I feel like that's the case around here. Whatever the heck they're doing. I thought they were just adding lanes, but it seems like they're doing a whole redesign of what's going on with the northern part of I-10 in El Paso County, the part that leads up to New Mexico. And I'm wondering if my grandchildren will see the finish of that project. I'm exaggerating, absolutely, but sometimes it feels like that. So we've got a little bit of time before we have to hit that next break at the top of the hour. So don't worry, if you're on the line, stay there. We'll get to your call. But we do have one other way and one question that has been being asked about let's call them frequent flyers or previous ones. So basically on our back end, we used to have the pound 250 system. We haven't mentioned it much lately because it had not been working out well, but we have some that are only wanting to use that. It sounded like there was a call there, but you weren't able to really discern a human voice. I think we figured out some of the technical difficulties. So we do have on the pound 250 line, Frankie did leave a message on there and able to play this one back. So here's our attempt to make that work.
What a sad discourse. You and Ben going back and forth. Ben knows everything, Andrew. You better. By golly, you better agree with him and say, yes, Ben, you are so right. Yes, you did all the research. You better say that. Oh, my goodness. He's going to get so mad. Oh, God bless. Or whatever he says. Let's go, Brandon. So stupid.
So he has been leaving messages. We just haven't been able to play them because of, I'm not sure what we did technically, but apparently we got them working again. So apparently the pound 250 system is absolutely working. So if you want to try to leave us messages by voice, even when we're off air, pound 250, the keyword Talk El Paso, and you should be able to leave your own that way. So that's our quick hit before you end up having to take that next break right now. And a lot of people chiming in on that and welcoming back. And I appreciate the comments. Again, we appreciate input of all kinds, particularly if we're actually like talking about the issue here. So he's been around, but we just haven't been able to. I don't know why he's decided not to call in anymore. I'll have to ask him that next time we get the chance to have a chat. But there you go. There is proof of life for those that have been very concerned. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the phone calls. Full up at the moment, but again, keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Gateway East of the Hunter Viscount exit, an accident there is blocking the left lane. Traffic is stop and go on the I-10 westbound. Mesa to Vinton, it's a 7-minute delay. 5-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Mesa. And the 54 south slowing down from McCombs down to Trans Mountain. It's a 5-minute backup. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
In this week's Marketers Report, we hear about the importance of local radio from Allison Griffin, head of marketing at State Farm.
iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that is local, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, trusted influencers, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
One-on-one with Susan Eisen.
Setting my very first diamond 30 years ago in my garage late at night took me 5 hours to do. Since then, our priority is the quality of our work.
When it comes to the highest quality control standards, visit SusanEisen.com. One-on-one with Susan Eisen.
Every diamond in our store is personally selected and graded by me to ensure you're getting more value than what you are paying for. That sets us apart.
When it comes to expert advice on diamonds, visit SusanEisen.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio on the hour and a half. KTSM. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Brian Shook.
The U.S. Navy suspects a top-secret military acoustic detection system picked up when the Titan submersible imploded. According to a defense official, the Navy began listening for the Titan almost as soon as the submersible lost communications with the mothership on the surface. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is backing the effort to expunge both of former President Trump's impeachments. He said Trump's behavior did not necessarily deserve the punishment and said he'd like to take it out of the historical record. The U.S. Attorney General is announcing the takedown of major fentanyl traffickers in the state of New York. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said 3 indictments were unsealed in the southern and eastern districts of New York, with 3 Chinese-based companies and their employees accused of trafficking chemicals used to make fentanyl.
But the U.S. Justice Department is accelerating our efforts to disrupt the manufacture and trafficking of fentanyl at every stage and in every part of the world.
Prosecutors say the companies advertise their services online but disguise these chemicals as dog food or motor oil to evade the law. There are reports roadblocks are being put up in and around Moscow after a Russian mercenary boss claimed Russia attacked his troops. The head of the Wagner mercenary group said a huge number of his troops fighting in Ukraine were killed by Russian forces, and he is now threatening a rebellion against Russia. A father and son from Texas are being sentenced to prison for their roles in the January 6th Capitol riot. More from Lisa Taylor.
Dad Jason Owens was sentenced to 2 years for shoving an officer in the face. 22-year-old son Grady Owens got a 3-year federal jail term. He struck a Capitol cop with his skateboard. So far, more than 1,000 people from nearly all 50 states have been arrested for the riot.
You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn is concerned about what she's calling the new evil axis. She took to Twitter yesterday and wrote Russia, Communist China, North Korea, and Iran are working together to take down the USA. It comes amid Blackburn's ongoing criticism about the recent visit to China by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. She also wrote China is set to plant troops and intelligence assets within 100 miles of the Florida coast. A Bronx, New York man is facing 3 additional murder charges in his alleged crime spree. Jacqueline Carl reports.
Police say 33-year-old Kenwood Allen is now facing a total of 5 murder charges based on a new indictment leveled at him Wednesday. According to the NYPD and DA Alvin Bragg, Allen and his squad drugged and robbed 21 people in Manhattan, 5 of whom died between March and December of 2022. Allen was first indicted in December on 2 murder charges and is facing other charges, including grand larceny and drug possession.
Tomorrow will be a somber day in South Florida as family members and first responders pause to honor the 98 people killed 2 years earlier when a Surfside condo building collapsed. The town will hold a remembrance ceremony tomorrow morning at 10 in the park directly across from the now vacant lot where the Champlain Towers South once stood.
The atmosphere will be remembrance. Let's hear the stories of some of the people we lost, as well as some of the people that underwent a search and rescue. We also have to keep in mind that they were a stakeholder in this, and to this date, they have memories that they're going to need to reflect on.
Town manager Hector Gomez says also like last year at 1:22 a.m., the exact time of the collapse, a torch will be lit. It will remain on until the 98th and last body was recovered, which was on July 20th. The land where Champlain Towers South stood has been sold and is being redeveloped. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Get your tickets now
at AXS.com
for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Coming back to Las Vegas.
2 nights.
September 22nd and 23rd.
1 stage.
At T-Mobile Arena.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
This is the iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival now.
Before they sell out.
At AXS.com.
That's AXS.com.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Hunter Biden pleads guilty, and it's a deal that every American should be angry about. It protects Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. I give you all the details on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, so download it right now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities,
and the repair bill.
What should we do?
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, we could have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast,
be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's the Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Woo! All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome.
All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, but of course, those dropping those likes and reacts, primarily on the Facebook, because that's how that works. But however you're able to do it, whatever works for you is the right place for you to be. But we got Richard Genesee, Gamber Banda, Edgar Ortiz, James Holmes, Flaco Jimenez, Marky Mandingo, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Jim McCravey. Do appreciate that, as it helps us with all those algorithmic things. As also James Ratcliffe, I think, just getting on there right now as well. Do appreciate it. But in any case, also a lot of other commentary coming in. And Joseph Lorentzen giving the endorsement towards looking at the video through Facebook or any of the social media, that appreciating the faces and the animation that comes along with them here. I think I will take that as a compliment. But in any case, a lot of ways, again, to participate, see the show, whatever you want to. And then again, a lot of other different ideas there. I will say we did get a message through the same system from Barbara. The processing at the time was unintelligible. I think that was on our end, anything on there. So might be able to go back and retrieve her message now that we've figured some things out. Technical issues is the best I can say for it, but apparently we got it up and working again. The pound 250. So you dial pound 250 on your phone. Has to be a smart device, one able to make a phone call, that is. So smartphone, shorthand. And then you say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted. You can leave us a message that way, day or night. But let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Marco and Central on the line with us here right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I have 3 points, but first off, let's give my condolences to the family who lost those young couple yesterday out at Macombs. Tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully their ancestors meet them in a great beyond. I want to also commend Lupe de la O from the Republican Party for going to City Hall and speaking her mind on the LGBT initiative to try and create, with taxpayer money, a department, which I commend her for going, but I also want to reach out. I want to reach out to our Muslim brothers, our Jewish brothers, even our LGBT brothers and sisters out there. If you don't think that the degeneracy that's going on with the children right now is correct, we're here. We don't believe that should be happening either. So I'm glad that. And I was going to be a jerk about it, but I want to commend Mayor Lisa. When you do good things, you should be commended for it. And so congratulations on him for having a level head and being like, you know what, we're going to give this 180 days to examine it. But now this gives us, as conservative-minded people, parents who are concerned, who aren't conservative-minded but just don't like what's happening, to give them an opportunity and be like, hey, you know what? If you don't like it, then we can organize. We have 180 days. We should start organizing a protest to be outside of City Hall when they're going to debate it more, and start showing that, hey, we as parents in El Paso do not agree with what's going on with the transgender movement and the LGBTQA idea of pride and freedom. Well, you have the right to be free and make your choices. You do not have the right to lord over our children and make sexual generalizations about them and try to pervert them with degenerate ideas. And the last point that I want to make before I leave you this beautiful day is I want to address Raul.
Okay.
And I want to address Raul because I want to commend Raul. Okay? Raul, it's impressive the way you put words together, even though you're missing a chromosome, okay? Because it's not correct, okay, for you, even though you're missing a chromosome, to make racist terms against Clarence Thomas, okay? You can't sit there and call him Uncle Thomas because that's racist, Raul, okay? So even though you're missing a chromosome, we'll forgive you this time because of that. But going forward, I will understand that every time you say that about Clarence Thomas, who's a black judge on the Supreme Court, you're making a derogatory term by calling him a house Negro, okay? And that's a bad thing, Raul. I know you understand this, even though you're missing a chromosome. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Sure thing. Thanks for the point on the call. Do appreciate it.
You're welcome, Andrew. Have a beautiful evening.
You as well there. So in reference to what Marco was talking about there, specifically reporting out from El Paso Inc., I'll point to on this one in their most recent edition of El Paso City Council approves plan to support LGBTQ plus people, and the rubber hitting the road moment that Marco was referring to there, that city staff is expected to return within 180 days with a plan for establishing an Office of Equality and an Equality and Inclusion Board, including information on the cost and function. The council will vote to approve or reject the recommendations. After specifically, there was a series of measures, again, quoting directly from El Paso Inc. on this one. Council passed a series of measures in support of LGBTQ people in El Paso. They include exploring the creation of an Office of Equality and working with the Borderland Rainbow Center to create a One El Paso Safer Together campaign. So that one is the one he was referring to there, I do believe. So, I mean, protest is a right that we do have and perceive in this country and in our community, certainly. But what I will say is this, that I'll stand by this line as far as I find it useful, that I don't care much about what is in someone's pants or how they live their lives, because I don't want any kind of the same scrutiny on my own life. And not as I've got something to hide, but it's not how this is supposed to work. If someone is saying, well, I don't like the way you live your life, I'm going to tell them the various ways in which they can go and pound sand, because they have no right. If they're not involved in my life, paying my bills, etc., they got no right to say what I have and what I am doing in my life. Whether they agree with it or not, that's their problem, frankly. And that's the way I'm going to continue standing by, because I don't know any other way to be about it. So when it comes to saying, well, I don't like the way people are living, that's fine. That can be your opinion. But if you're saying, and therefore they're not going to be able to, where's where we're going to disagree in general. But I think we have time for at least one more call on the line here. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. My call today is an effort to inform all the listeners that have been listening to MSNBC, CNN, CBS, and all mainstream media outlets.
Okay.
Because I'm sure they have not heard this information. This is from the committee chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer. Okay, this is a quote. Evidence obtained by committee Republicans reveals Joe Biden lied to the American people about his involvement in his family's business schemes. The Biden family business model is built on Joe Biden's political career and connections with Joe Biden as the chairman of the board. Biden family members sold access for profit around the world to the detriment of American interests. If President Biden is compromised by deals with foreign adversaries and they are impacting his decision-making, this is a threat to national security. Aren't you just, the people that are listening, if you haven't heard that before, aren't you just a little bit interested in finding out if these accusations are true?
I mean, in general, the idea of transparency is a great thing. And yeah, I know that one of the counter arguments that's been brought up to this is essentially that they're just throwing mud and hoping that something sticks and that things will develop. I mean, some of the things like relation to, though not directly what you're talking about, by the impeachment attempt at and the impeachment that Lauren Boebert of Colorado put forth. They're related topics of, again, not exactly what you're talking about, and that vote did end up failing 219 to 208. So I think that we're going to keep seeing this come up. I have no doubt in my mind about that, though I think that's, frankly, as much as also was often talked about in this, about, okay, so what are the substantive aspects of it, where the evidence, what ways it can be presented in. I mean, I think that's been one of the things that was the previous conversation we had about the Grassley things, about the the 1032 documents not being able to be released at this point means that there is a level of interpretation that can be done of it. I mean, all those questions end up being answered if there is transparency and things being shown, investigations being done, and the results of them shown, etc.
Yeah, recent press releases, Comer reveals new evidence in Biden family's influence peddling schemes. Comer reveals Biden family members receiving payments from Chinese energy companies. Biden family's influence peddling threatens national security. All these things. Again, it could be that Comer investigation is just one-sided and he's making up all these things, in which case I think Joe Biden probably should have an action against him, for legally speaking, for defaming him. And or it could be that maybe we should find out. So don't you think we should find out?
In general, again, I agree. The idea of transparency, sunlight is a great disinfectant, etc. And again, it kind of goes back to, I guess, what we brought up at the start of this program, or was brought up when it comes to, as Andrew, I believe, the caller at the time, was referencing when it comes to the Hunter Biden charges and resolution of them that is now being looked at, is that, I mean, sure, Hunter Biden is not within the White House nor a member of it, but still, you would have to expect, it would be reasonable to expect at least a little bit of something happening with someone's immediate family coming back on them, regardless of the office that they inhabit. So, I mean, is it something that, well, the questions that are being brought up by this are something that, I mean, there absolutely is, as much as there are always at this level, political implications, and that is absolutely a part of it for some. But still, there are, I think, reasonable people can disagree on this, but come down to a point of, okay, but let's look into it. Let's put this to bed and actually go through it and see what's what, and present it to the American people. And of course, there's going to be the political haymaking that comes from this, from either side, on the probably smaller, finer, and more susceptible to their own interpretation points, but that also always happens. So that's nothing new either.
Absolutely. And one other thing. The Democrats in the House and Senate just introduced a bill about a week ago that would give immigrants immediate access to federal benefits, such as Medicaid and food stamps, instead of making them wait for 5 years, which that's under current law, which was passed on a 3-1 vote in 1996 by the House and Senate and signed by Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
So much for the idea that immigrants are illegals, or whatever you want to call them, are not going to cost the American public anything.
Okay. Do you happen to know that bill name or number offhand?
I might be able to find it real quick. I'm not too sure. It's
okay. Well, we'll try.
It was under the bill from Representative Jayapal, Cardenas, and Hirono. I don't have the name of the bill.
Okay.
It's a statement about our bill, the Lift the Bar Act.
Lift the Bar Act. Okay.
The Bar Act.
All right, we'll take a look at the closer on that one then. So we'll appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Stay well, stay safe, and let's go, Brandon.
All right, with that, we'll
Have
go.
a good weekend.
You too as well, certainly. And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we've had some people dropped off the line, so we got lines available now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Friday's getting off to a good start so far. No crashes on your El Paso freeways. Not too many delays. I-10 eastbound got a 7-minute delay from Trans Mountain over the Patriot. Heavy congestion blocking the ramps to the 110 and port of entry. I-10 westbound. I-10 westbound in the Spaghetti Bowl. Heavy congestion blocking the ramps to the 110 and the port of entry. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
I've tried a lot of language learning apps lately, and Rosetta Stone is hands down my favorite. I love that it teaches you phrases you can use in real-life conversations, and they have the best speech recognition tool. It tells you how accurate your pronunciation is, so you can really nail your accent. Learn almost any language you want, like Spanish, Italian, Chinese, and Korean. Or get access to all 25 languages for life with Rosetta Stone's lifetime unlimited subscription. Check it out at rosettastone.com.
A catalytic converter is an important component of your car's exhaust system. They can cost several $1,000s to replace. Cats can be removed in under a minute and have a high scrap value. Keep your vehicle safe from cat burglars. Park in well-lit areas. Install a protective device. Have your VIN number etched onto your catalytic converter. It's a total catastrophe. If your catalytic converter is stolen, lock it down. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at kcsmradio.com.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost. But more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Did find the bill that Ben was mentioning there, and there is Lift the Bar Act, though the recent finding on it is actually as of 2021. So it looks like there's been a version of it, so I'll need to check the recent submission on it here. Now, this one, a reference I'm finding from the National Immigration Law Center. But a lot of other commentary coming in. And just as a note on the phone lines, we've had a couple of people either call in or drop off, or call in and not be able to connect there. So just make sure you got good signal here. If there's anything on our end, we'll be checking that out. But phone lines open and available, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do try to take all the callers that we can here. So if you have any technical issues, just keep trying and we'll get with you as soon as we can. 915-544-5876, the number there. But some of the other comments coming in, including about spending, RJ bringing that up there. I mean, that's one of the things that does kind of irk me when it comes to the national, is that, okay, there's may end up being a lot of rhetoric about, we got to do less spending, or what the people are doing in power is awful with the spending. And yet when someone ends up having the reins of power, they end up, racking up the bills. The national debt did not come out of nowhere in any case, the trillions that it is these days. So they're actually having reasonable things and controls on it. I mean, the thing about the checks and balances and the system of power that are intended to exist in this country was to rein in power, and therefore not to let it in. Again, the founding fathers and all of their wisdoms definitely overlooked one big thing, and that was of essentially political parties. We're going to keep coming back to that until that ever really gets dealt with, fixed, no longer a part of politics, which I don't see happening anytime soon, because they set up each branch to be independent, federal, in the federal government, judiciary, executive, and legislative, but they did not really count for there being able to make deals between them. They thought that's essentially, they did account for human nature and the wanting to keep power to yourself here, not let it waft away to others that you do not have control over, but they didn't really account for someone making deals saying, okay, I'll do what you want if you let me have this power type of situation. Their envisioning was of everyone to basically be their own political party and everyone be making their own decisions and coming up with what makes the most sense for them. And then pretty immediately, I mean, we're talking about, frankly, in between and a little bit after the establishment of the Constitution. There's a reason we have Constitution Day, and it's not just, July 4th, 1776, because they came after and had a lot of other parts drawn into it. And pretty immediately, the Federalists and Anti-Federalists and all that came about. So, yeah, whether or not we messed that one up is up for debate, but it is the system that we do inhabit. And if you want to change the rules, that's fine, but also don't just cry about the system and say, well, therefore we should have it different and then do nothing about it. Yeah, RJ Promote saying that they knew about the parties and warned us. I mean, that was part of Washington's farewell address, if you'll recall, but also that was pretty much oh, wait, guys, don't do the thing. Do not do the thing. And we promptly did the thing. So saying we ignored it. And yeah, Washington's farewell address absolutely had a idea towards this and also a few other things. But I mean, it was one thing to say, hey, guys, don't do it. Another way to look at the way the system was set up and whether it was respecting of that or not. Frankly, I think that if there were to be any other, had there been the opportunity to have a review change the way they were going to go about it, they may have looked at, I mean, it wasn't really an example that could follow at that time, but the parliamentary system of where it's a proportional assignment of positions as representation, that is, and therefore there can be more than, the duopoly as it's talked about, because as much as there is a partisan bent to the way it's been brought up on this show so far, the idea that if it's not one, it's the other, or as The Simpsons famously parodied it back in the day, it's vote for one alien or the other, because if you're voting third party, you're just throwing your vote away. And unfortunately, I guess that informs a lot of my political ideology now that I think about it, because I saw that back in the day, as a youngster, and yeah, that has definitely stuck with me. Revelations on this show, at least personal ones. So the point is that if you're wanting to see things change, it can be possible. I mean, we've had some guests on talking about the possibility of seeing the changes to the Constitution that are within the Constitution. I know there's some out there that's saying that anyone wants to change the Constitution is therefore a traitor, but it's literally within it, because another thing the founders did do was figure out that things may change. There are going to be circumstances that they would have no imagining of. Can you imagine what anyone from that generation would be thinking of about the internet alone? That may break some brains back from there. So to say that there should not be any changes or even possibilities within it would be, that was foolish at its outset. So I don't think really there's a strong support behind anything changing on that at this point. But if I had my magic wand, it would absolutely be multi-member representation districts and also Citizens United kibosh on its overall. I'll definitely say that. But it does lead to disillusionment, among other things, like James Ratcliffe saying that we have a uniparty, just an illusion of two or more parties, and Louis Pinato tagging onto that saying, and we aren't invited. So yeah, anytime it leaves out regular Joes, so to speak, the people that aren't as well connected, it's a problem. Because one of the other things that I want to say it was Jefferson, I'll have to look up the quote here, is that the idea of the American experiment was that it rejects the idea that most of the populace is born saddled and a select few are born mounted and spurred and ability to mount, and therefore ride the populace and use them to their own needs. And that's one that I firmly stand behind. All right, I think we do have a caller managed to get through on the line here. If we're having any of the other issues, do apologize, but we do have a Rich calling in from the Socorro area on the line with us right now. Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I'm glad Frankie's live. It's nice to hear that he's still kicking around out there.
Absolutely.
For a while.
Mm-hmm.
And Raul is still a fool. He hasn't changed one bit. It's a broken record with him. And, of course, what is it, Eric, who got censored, like I guess that, Adam, what's his name? Shifty Shift got censored. I think that's kind of cool. But you were talking about the debt, which was right here, before
sure.
I called you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make a point here. I heard a congressman talking about the debt, and he was saying that if you were to turn seconds into money, 1 million seconds would be 12 days.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
A billion seconds would be 32,000 years. And a trillion seconds would be what was that? I'm trying to get it right. Well, whatever the case was of the trillion, my point was that our debt is like 995,000 years if we were to count each bill in seconds. Okay. It was okay. The trillion was 300 and I think it was 320,000 years. And the seconds
right.
in what our debt is would be pretty close to 995,000 years. And we don't understand as people what kind of money, what kind of numbers we're talking about. And we keep putting this money out there, and eventually I think we're going to break. It's going to come to a collapse. And you brought this up right now about that.
Yeah, sure.
The UPS driver just drove up and it does went crazy.
No worries.
But it's something that really needs to be understood by people. These numbers are unbelievable, and we're surprised that computers can even keep up with them. So I wanted you to elaborate a little more on what the this thing about the new reset that's supposed to happen here. I think the end of next month or something, where they want to go into a digital dollar. Have you heard anything about that?
There's been, ever since cryptocurrency became, I'm not entirely convinced it's not a fad in its own right, but it's had some staying power, even if it goes through its first major recession, has its own idea of a market. The problem is it's not being treated as a monetary instrument. It's being treated as a commodity and a store of wealth, which is a whole different subject than you're bringing up here. But ever since it seemed like it wasn't going to go away, at least quickly, the idea of the digital U.S. dollar and effectively a U.S. managed cryptocurrency has been floated and coming around here because, among other things, I dabbled in some of this. This is not an encouragement, and kind of I didn't lose my shirt over it, but I lost most of what I put into it, none of which was significant, thankfully, because I was hobbyist at best. And the situation is that there have been other ones, stable coins, what they're called, which basically said, hey, we're pegged to the dollar so you can trade us like it. And there's been some rumblings of, so are you not just making your own currency then, which is illegal on several levels, but it's a separate issue, or at least like minting U.S. currency effectively. So the idea of that, and therefore being more regulation with it, I mean, it's come up a couple of times by other commenters and callers, particularly on Fridays in this kind of a show. So I don't know if it's, I mean, yeah, there's great reset and implications like you mentioned there that come along with it. So I am still dubious about it because, I mean, there are areas of this country that don't have reliable electricity, of course, around the world as well, much less like stable Wi-Fi and the ability to always do this. I mean, there's a lot of dystopian stuff that could be happening out there, right? Like I saw a claim of someone saying that they went to a corner store that had a sign on it saying that you have to look at the camera for facial identification in order to be able to enter into the store. And that's not one I've encountered personally, but those kind of things and the concept of them. The technology certainly exists. Whether it's implementable is another thing. And also, again, the concepts of the Great Reset of you'll own none and be happy with it. I just can't take that seriously. I am sure there is someone seriously out there saying that, oh no, this is the plan and we're going to do it. It's going to be wonderful. But to think that anyone would like willingly servitude themselves in any kind of any significant portion of the population, let's put it that way. There's always going to be someone out there willing to do just about anything if you find the right person. But that anyone would be willing to just totally say, yeah, that's fine. I will just go along with it, particularly looking at gesturing broadly at the state of the world right now, in which some of the other things looking at that there may or may not be a coup going on in Russia right now, or at the very least internal military forces fighting each other. Is the idea of anyone having total control or being able to truly maintain total control over any situation, just it kind of sounds laughable to me at this standpoint.
Well, what do you think about China? How are they treating their people? Would they have to use a phone to go buy their products?
Mm-hmm.
They can keep track of them, of how they're ruined, their facial expressions could be caught on the camera and identified. Don't you think that could possibly come to this country at one point if we do become this one world order?
I mean, the whole concept of, China treating Black Mirror like an instruction manual and also reading 1984 and be like, oh, yeah, that's a good starting point is just messed up from its very proposition. I'll fully agree with you on that point here. But also, I mean, even as much as, what is it? For shorthand, the Xi Jinping app, where you have to get certain citizenship points and using it and going through lesson gives you the ability to have certain privileges. They're definitely testing that out. And they are definitely having, and to be held account on that, by the way, is definitely also Western tech firms. The Great Firewall of China, as it's being called, is absolutely not something that was entirely indigenously developed. There have been a lot of people saying, well, I guess we can make money and it won't affect us right now, like big tech firms that we are definitely going to be familiar with if they were to be mentioned. But let's just say that, again, the ability to have that level of control is predicated on a level of technology being inherently available, which is, again, there are communities that don't even have reasonable access to Wi-Fi in this country, and sometimes electricity. So to say that this is just, it's an inexorable march towards it, there is a level of you have to have stuff available that's, I don't know if it's still totally never going to be available in this country, but that's so much to say that it's also not totally available within China itself. The big cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Macau to a certain extent, places like that, absolutely. They are doing their damnedest to implement it. But you also got to understand that in China, there are small villages or regional villages of 1 million plus people, because that's the amount. I mean, when you start having 1 billion plus people, the size and scale comparisons get a little bit screwy, at least from this standpoint of us being 330, 350, somewhere around there in this country. And so there's plenty of people that fall outside of this system. But in the major hubs, it's frankly one of the reasons that they were really having to focus so much on Hong Kong there for a bit, because Hong Kong, when there was the changeover back in 91, it was one of the biggest sectors of their economy. But they've now grown many other parts of it that now it's becoming a control issue. And of course, Taiwan plays into this as well. So many things end up being more interconnected that talking about anything individually often ends up being a little bit fruitless. But to your specific point about attempts to bring that to this country and do it here, like I just mentioned, I literally saw, at the very least, it was a representation of, if not actually implemented, of the idea of having to do facial recognition to enter into a particular store. And I would have no doubt that something like that might be attempted to be brought forth from a public safety concern or security concern, saying, hey, this place is a high crime. We have a lot of people that are coming in and, trying to, knock over the store, any of those type of things. And so we want to have their face on camera, and then we'll let them in. And again, there are probably going to be places in which that is going to be possible, feasible, and may even be successfully implemented. But to expect it to work widespread everywhere and to people just be like, yeah, that's fine, that's how this works, there's a certain amount of a certain level of complacency that does exist within our current society. The whole bread and circuses method, if you want to talk about it that way. But if certain basic things are therefore not available and therefore able to, well, the bread and circuses, the entertainment and the sustenance, there's a whole lot of people that only really think on those levels. Let's be honest. That thing like, well, I've got my needs met, therefore, why should I bother? It used to be that the ignorance of politics was considered a rich man's luxury, that not having to worry about what's going on in politics and policies is therefore mean that you just got the money to be able to avoid it. But that seems to have gotten flipped, at the very least in our community, to bring it back a little bit closer to home, with the vast majority of people not even bothering to go out to the polls for something as significant and discussed as, well, the school boards. Let's just put it that way. So simple answer is, as much as simple can be got it out of here, there are going to be some people that don't care and maybe not like enthusiastically go along with it, but be like, oh, well, I guess that just is what it is. But I think at a certain point, enough of a upheaval of life as it is, and certainly we've seen a lot of this last century. I mean, you think about the impact that the automobile had. There's that one great scene from Shawshank Redemption of, I forget the guy's name, but coming out of prison for having been in there for decades and decades on end and saying, oh man, the world's gotten so fast now. I have no doubt that that type of change will continue on. But also the idea of like not even sustainability in the like environmental term, but a sustainability of, can a effort truly be continued on without there being massive, and I do mean massive, changes that people are starting to both notice and therefore maybe be unhappy with. One of the charts that sticks with me, kind of related to this, not totally your question and your point, but of wealth inequality and how it exists. Not trying to go on a tangent here on the idea of how we should redistribute or anything, but that wealth inequality at this point in most Western societies is greater than it was during the French Revolution. And that's the model that I think is really being considered and frankly put into place here, not of the revolution itself, but of avoiding it, that if you keep people at least happy, that they won't be concerned about those other things. But you start doing some of these things that are being talked about, I think you're going to find a whole lot of people incredibly unhappy, and I will absolutely be one of them.
Yes, sir, Andrew. I agree with you. And it's always good talking to you. I just think that there should be a line of concern with people with the numbers that we're talking about.
Oh, certainly.
We can give laps or a dollar, but it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I love your show, and I hope to talk to you next Friday.
Yeah,
Well,
appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
Bye-bye.
All right, and with that, I think we are well overdue for that next break. If I'm looking at my timing clock, yep, we got to take that next break. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you want to get on the line here, we got some people able to fight through, apparently. So if you want to give us a call, squeeze on before the end of the show, 915-544-587-654-4KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. A man that was wanted for murder out of Hobbs, New Mexico, has been arrested in Far East El Paso. 27-year-old Jose Armando Muro attempted to evade deputies near Turf Road back on Monday, but was taken into custody and booked into the El Paso County Detention Facility with no bond. A Fort Bliss soldier has been sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for sexually abusing a 6-year-old on post. Court documents showed Trevor Liu of Dallas sexually abused a minor while serving at Fort Bliss between 2014 and 2015. Well, former Texas Congressman Will Hurd, who represented a small part of El Paso County, is officially pitching himself as a presidential hopeful, saying he'll focus his campaign on things like inflation, academic performance in schools, crime, homelessness, and border security. For more headlines, head to our website, cbs4local.com. I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso freeways crash free right now. I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to the Patriot, 7-minute delays. 8-minute delays, I-10 westbound after Wrestler up to Vinton. I-10 westbound at the ramps to the port of entry and the 110 southbound. Heavy congestion there is blocking those interchange ramps. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warned through Thursday of next week for extreme heat. We're looking at a high temperature of 108 degrees on Saturday, 109 on Sunday, possibly 110 by Monday. Heat advisory through Sunday night, excessive heat warning late Sunday night through Tuesday night. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
Recently, we hit the streets and found out how informed people really are.
Yes, I'm on top of events.
Most news, yes.
Except for these two.
I am not on top of events.
I'm not on top of my events, no.
They were clueless that every morning they can plug into the world with the news, weather, and traffic info that'll make their lives so much easier and more informed. Just like you and I do. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
Titans go! When the Teen Titans go to the movies, they know the best way to travel is safely. Hollywood, here we come! Road trip! And you know it's super. To keep your child safe, be sure to use the right car seat for their age and size.
Exactly.
I know you're feeling.
We're finally on the big screen.
Have a seat, my dude. For more information on finding the right seat, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Gotcha. That's a wise move.
It's an Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 year-to-date in new car sales. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering huge savings on all new and certified pre-owned vehicles. More for your trade with no payments for 90 days.
Thank you, boss man. This week at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Get $10,000 off MSRP on remaining 2022 Grand Wagoneer SUVs. Get $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks. Get $1,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Wrangler Sport and Sahara. Plus super low 2.8% APR for 72 months on 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie and Lone Star trucks. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our aggressive lenders will push to improve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and I-10 at Sunland Park Drive, or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate dealer discount plus GTNL. 2.9% APR is 15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Being aware of the world around you is important.
When it comes to news, yes, I am.
So we're feeding your need to know 24/7 at the top and bottom of the hour.
I like to know what's going on in my locality, abroad.
Events of the world.
Fairly so. Yeah, I'm pretty connected.
Or down the street.
For the most part, I know what's going on.
You know, I need to be aware and what to look out for, and I'm real cautious, so yeah, I need to have that.
It's what we do. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hunter Biden pleads guilty, and it's a deal that every American should be angry about. It protects Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. I give you all the details on the Ben Ferguson podcast, so download it right now, wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson podcast.
At Children's Cancer Research Fund, we believe a world without childhood cancer is possible, but it takes all of us. And whether it's developing a groundbreaking treatment or helping a girl realize her dream, everyone has a role in a child's cancer journey. Just ask researcher Brandon Moriarty about his latest breakthrough, a genetic biomarker treatment.
Children's Cancer Research Fund is a great organization. They provide funding to really dig deep into the research and make more progress. We were able to start a clinical trial that's led by Emily Greengard.
The hope is that these types of therapies are going to be more effective and a lot better tolerated, a lot more safe for the patients.
People ask me how I keep a smile on my face. It's easy when you have so many great people that take care of you and support you.
To find out how you can be a part of a child's cancer journey and a part of the cure, visit childrenscancer.org, a public service message from Children's Cancer Research Fund.
Talk El Paso is going daily. Join host Andrew J. Polk weekdays at 4 with the Borderlands' only live local talk radio show, breaking down the impact of the news and taking your calls. That's Talk El Paso, live Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Sponsorship and advertising opportunities are also available. To find out on how you can affordably reach an affluent and highly educated demographic, please call iHeartMedia at 915-351-5473. That's 915-351-5473.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Those dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate. Ida Basic Gardner, Zig G. Maybe it's to put many G's in that. Louis Pinato, Bernadette Bandicoot, Flacco Jimenez, James Ratcliffe, Richard Genesik, Amber Vanda, Edgar Ortiz, James Holmes, Marky Mendingo, Monica Cervantes, and Jim McCravey. Do appreciate all that. If anyone else wants to give an attempt here, we keep losing calls on the line, so I'm not sure what I got going on this end, but we'll do our level best. So anyone else wants to try to fight through the line, that number, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Try to close out the this free-for-all Friday on a high note with it, but we'll say some of the comments coming in there, of course, including from those over on the social media, primarily the Facebook, but other comments coming in, such as RJ saying, I remember when $1 billion was a lot and Americans were freaking out. Still trying to wrap my mind around a multi-trillion-dollar debt like the last caller referenced. I sometimes go and look at usdebtclock.org whenever I'm having a great day that I want to ruin. And U.S. national debt currently at 32 trillion and change. And yes, that change does involve billions, 112 as of the current calculation and a half about. It was a little bit off on the numbers he was mentioning, but yeah, it is that a million seconds ends up being on the order of weeks. A billion seconds is about 30 years, like 31 technically. So, and then a trillion seconds is 31,000 years. So if we're looking at the current you take that by 32, and that comes over to just over a million years if you were to take each individual second as a dollar. So I've said this before, that's the thing about us being on a fiat currency, which also is newer than I sometimes give it credit for. I mean, it's longer than my lifetime, but within a lot of lived experience being of any of the standards of the precious metals that are what modern monetary theory is basically predicated on the ability to have changes be happening without regards to the actual supply of money or the backing of the supply of money, let's put it that way, but rather on the full faith and confidence, what's right on the dollar bill. And so that's, people often say, well, so what's the ceiling on this outside of the debt ceiling? Not referencing that exactly, though it also plays into the conversation. But as so when does the bottom fall out? Essentially what it comes down to. And I got to say, it's right up until the faith and confidence is no longer there. Really, if you want to get down to brass tacks about it, what currently backs up the U.S. dollar is the United States military, because what does money buy you but the ability to do things, and what does the military have but ability to do a lot of things? Sure, mostly towards breaking things as opposed to other things. No dig intended at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers or anything like that, but that's what truly backs the United States dollar is the U.S. military, is the way I see it anyway. I'm sure there's some other theories and statisticians that would agree it to a certain extent, but that's essentially the way I think about it. Some of the posts I've seen lately, particularly about, there was this one B-2 Spirit bomber that was flying around, or at least the video flying around, and a lot of the captions going on that were, you're about to find out why the United States doesn't have free health care, among other things. So there's a lot of ways to end up thinking about it, but what I will say is that as much as the games played with it, it has not always been this way. Some of the conversations also happen about the idea that the value of the dollar, because inflation exists, and it is essentially a tool of the way things work. If inflation were just to be pegged at zero and moved around, there would actually be a lot of issues that come along with that. inflation in basically modern economic terms, and not trying to peddle conspiracy theory, but it is an incentive to buy. The reason why deflation is seen as such a bad thing, you might think, well, your money's worth more. Wouldn't that be a better thing? In trade terms, yes. There being more, that your money is worth more than someone else's money is one thing. But if things were start to get cheaper, essentially the theory goes into it that they would remove anyone's incentive to buy, because if the thing goes that, okay, say this drink can, nondescript brand with a flight to fight can that you might see me drinking out of here, koozie, as was one of our previous show sponsors. Hope they have a great event again this year. That if this can was to be $1 today, but that tomorrow it ends up being, say, 95 cents. But it looks like that trajectory is to continue on. Sure, like, I mean, if you want to buy a soda and continue to eat or drink, people are going to buy things as they need to. Needs still need to be met. But if we're talking about more than that, if you're talking about, say, investments, durable goods, stuff that isn't immediately needed but might be, what's the incentive for someone to then buy it immediately as opposed to wait? So the idea that the economy would grind to a halt is essentially a bunch of that theory. And this is where I rest on the, yes, I have a minor in economics that I only get to bring up in economics debates types of situations. A couple of the other comments coming in there as well, saying, now, Leonidas Bermuda commenting, Chinese citizens protesting in the streets of December of 2019, waving American flags. Then 2020 came along. Yeah, actually, Michael Yon, a gentleman I've been able to have some conversations with over the year, came through El Paso some years ago and was in Hong Kong when that was happening at that point in time. So that's absolutely true. It also, as well as did miss that, Ida Beza Gardner wishing a happy free-for-all Friday to everyone, and a lot of other commentary going on. Let's just say there's no one in my ear. I barely got headphones on as it is. This is so I hear the dang show. So these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on this, because there's a lot more that comes along with this. And trying to be a reasonable person in increasingly unreasonable times does feel a little bit deceptive sometimes, then does it? So I think we're just going to have to basically end the show there for today, because we're out of time here for the rest of this program. So a couple of things we got noted coming up for you on this weekend. Of course, we got the El Paso History Radio Show coming up, this time visiting with local military historian John Hamilton as he recounts the research he's done into the Columbus raid happening over 100 years ago, a little bit earlier this year, March of 1916, when Pancho Villa and his forces crossed into the U.S. To raid the town and the garrison that was there in Columbus, including some of the research he was able to do into what the bullet order was that was then for refilling after that conflict particularly ended. And of course, what that meant for Villa, the Mexican Revolution, and particularly his fortunes. Here's a spoiler alert, nothing great for him. But also, of course, coming up for you next week, things we're working on, interviews with some of our local politicians, including Cassandra Hernandez, City Rep District 3, responding to and able to talk about the gas card and more. Probably some of the things that have been brought up today as well, and just a whole lot more. Need to talk with more of our local elected officials, or those that put them forth, and the parties as well, working on some of that. So there's a lot going on, a lot of people bringing you, but I thank everyone that did join us here for Talk El Paso. We'll do it again next week, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want to thank you all for tuning in to the show and having joined us here again, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. is when we do this, and we appreciate you all joining us, particularly on this Free for All Friday. But I will say that until then, until next time, stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you next week. We do stream the Facebook on the History Show. We'll post that link. Have a great one.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Just one crash reported right now off the freeways. Northbound McCombs before Trans Mountain. Police are responding to a crash. I-10 eastbound slow Trans Mountain to the Patriot, 5-minute delays. 5-minute delays on I-10 westbound from Rustler up to Vinton. And slow traffic on eastbound Montana from McRae out to Desert Meadows, 12-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Have you ever wondered how Pride Month became ubiquitous? To find the answer, Red Pilled America tells the story of how a seminal battle led to its mainstreaming. Get in on the independent media revolution and listen to the show everyone's talking about, Red Pilled America, available anywhere you get podcasts.
Car crimes are on the rise. Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. When you park your car, always lock it down. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Never leave your windows down. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight, or you might return to a terrible sight. Try to park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A top-secret military acoustic detection system heard what the U.S. Navy suspects was the implosion of the Titan submersible hours after it began its expedition. More from Aaron Real.
According to U.S. defense officials, the Navy began listening for the Titan almost as soon as the submersible